Welcome to Division Facts. Today we're going to talk about strategies that can help you become a division fact master. Here's some of our goals today. The first thing we're going to do is discuss the parts of a division fact. We're going to move on to discussing division fact rules and how division relates to multiplication. And finally, we're going to learn how to create a fact family and how to relate multiplication and division in fact families to help you memorize your division facts. At the end, you'll practice by completing a practice page with your mentor and completing the real-world project by yourself. Let's get going. So how are division facts represented? In Concept 4, we learned that showing division came in two different forms: repeated subtraction and sharing. Today, we're going to represent division using numbers and mathematical signs and symbols, including the division sign and the equal sign. So here's some important division vocab. Dividend, divisor, division sign, more so what it looks like, and quotient. And as you can see, we have the way to say the word, quotient. So let's start with the parts of a division fact. The first part you need to know is the dividend. The dividend is the number that is being divided in a division sentence. It is the largest number in the fact, and it represents the total number of objects you're starting with. The second number you need to know is the divisor. It's the number that the dividend is being divided by in a division sentence. It can represent the number of groups or the number of objects in a group, depending on the problem. In this case, we can read this division sentence in two ways. We can say 12 objects divided into 3 groups, or 12 objects divided into groups of 3. Depends on the situation. We of course need to know what the division symbol is. And it's the symbol that we put between the dividend and the divisor to show that the dividend must be divided by the divisor, not added, subtracted, or multiplied. The last word that you need to know is the quotient. And it's actually the answer to a division fact. Don't confuse it with a sum, which is addition, a difference, which is subtraction, or a product, which is multiplication. So let's try it out. Pause the video and work with your mentor. Below is a list of division facts. Using the recording sheet that can be found on the Concept 5 student page, decide which numbers are the dividend, divisor, and the quotient. Sort the numbers into the correct categories. We will check your answers on the next slide. Good luck! Welcome back. How'd you do? Take a look. Make sure that you got all of the numbers into the correct categories. If you need to go back and review what parts of it make up a division fact, go for it. So there's 3 big rules that we have to follow in division. And unlike multiplication, division does not have a lot of big rules and patterns to help us know our facts. So that makes these 3 super important. The first one is the 0 rule. The second is the ones rule. And the last one is the self rule. Now, you may not see them listed in a book like this, but these are the best names that we can give them so that you can remember what the rule actually stands for. Let's start with the 0 rule. Part 1 of the 0 rule states that 0 divided by any number is always going to be 0. Take a look at our example. I have 0 objects. I will divide them into 3 groups. Each group will get 0 items. Part 2 of the 0 rule states that you cannot divide any number by 0, meaning 0 can never be the divisor in a division fact. Take a look at our example. 3 divided by 0 equals 0. I have 3 objects. I will divide them into 0 groups. Each group will get 0 items. This can't happen because you can't put objects into something that doesn't exist or be able to divide them into groups of 0. I have nowhere to put anything or an amount to put into groups, so it cannot happen. Next, we come to the ones rule. The ones rule states that any number divided by 1 will always be that number. For example, 3 divided by 1 equals 3. I have 3 objects. I will divide them into groups of 1. There will be 3 groups. Or, I have 3 objects. I will divide them into 1 group. There will be 3 objects in that 1 group. Yes, you can divide 1 by a number, but we won't learn about that for a few years, so you don't have to worry about it. Let's move to the self rule. The self rule states that when a number is divided by that same number itself, the quotient is always 1. 3 divided by 3 equals 1. I have 3 objects. I will divide them into 3 groups. There will be 1 object in each group. Or, I have 3 objects. I will divide them into groups of 3. There will be 1 group. So try it out. Pause the video and work with your mentor. Below is a list of division facts. Using the recording sheet that can be found on the Concept 5 student page, decide which facts follow the 0, ones, or self rule. If you find a fact that you cannot do, it will go into the cannot do category. Sort the facts into the correct categories. We will check your answers on the next slide. Good luck! Welcome back. Check your answers. Notice there were 2 facts that could not be done. 19 divided by 0 and 8 divided by 0. Always remember that rule that 0 can never be the divisor. Let's move into talking about the relationship between multiplication and division. Just like addition and subtraction are opposites, so are multiplication and division. We call opposite operations the inverse of one another. That's just a fancy way of saying we're doing the opposite action with our numbers. In the next part of our video, we will explore the relationship between multiplication and division. Pause here and get your work area ready. You can have out the following supplies to help you along: counters, paper and pencil, or a whiteboard and dry erase marker if available or if you prefer. So pause, get your work area ready, and hit play when you're ready to move on. First things first, these operations are inverse because one makes an amount grow bigger while the other breaks an amount into smaller pieces. However, they work hand in hand with one another when we're trying to learn our facts. Let's start with an example. Make your work area look like our work area. Pause your video to get set. I have 10 counters arranged in an array. Let's start by answering this question. How can I describe this picture using a multiplication fact? I see there are 2 rows, and there's 5 objects in each row. 2 times 5 equals 10. This is what a story describing this fact might sound like. Jerry went apple picking. He had 2 baskets. He put 5 apples in each basket. How many apples did Jerry pick? 2 times 5 equals 10 apples. Now let's think of the same picture in terms of division. If I'm thinking in terms of division, I will not think of this as rows and objects. I will just think of this as a total number of objects. There are 10. Now let's turn Jerry's apple picking story into a division story. Jerry went apple picking. He picked 10 apples. He has 2 baskets and wanted to fill them equally. How many apples will go in each basket? Pause here. Discuss with your mentor how you would solve this problem using division. How many apples go in each basket? When you're done, we will review your answers on the next slide. Good luck! Welcome back. Let's talk about Jerry again. Jerry went apple picking. He picked 10 apples, he has 2 baskets and wanted to fill them equally. How many apples will go in each basket? To solve this division story, I would think of sharing because I know my number of groups, 2 baskets, and I want to find out how many objects go in each. How many apples in each basket? Remember, when I share, I put 1 in each group at a time. So 1, 1, 2, 2, so far that's 4, 3, 3, so far that's 6, 4, 4, 5, 5. That gets me to my 10 apples. So I had 10 and I divided them into 2 groups, 2 baskets. 10 apples divided into 2 baskets. That means I have 5 apples in each basket. So 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Talk about it. Pause your video here for some discussion time with your mentor. Think about the following questions as you talk. When you're ready, hit play and we will review on the next slide. What elements of each problem are the same? What elements of each problem are different? How could you use multiplication to help you with your division facts after looking at these 2 problems? See you on the next slide. Let's talk about what you discovered. Some similarities you might have noticed were that both problems use the numbers 2, 5, and 10. Both have a total of 10 apples. The differences might have come with the actual operations. In the multiplication problem, we were looking for the total number of objects, and we were combining groups of objects to find the total number of apples. But in division, we already had that total number of apples. We were looking for the total number of objects that went in each group. Instead of combining groups, we were breaking apart groups of numbers. This moves us into the fact family. We've compared multiplication and division, so now let's talk about a strategy that you can use to help you learn your division facts with the help of multiplication. The fact family. To us, a family might mean a few different things. It could mean mom, dad, sister, brother, cousins, grandma, grandpa, aunts, or uncles. No matter who you consider to be a part of your family, one thing is for sure. You are all related to one another in some way. In math, the same is true for fact families. Numbers are related to one another in some way, usually by being a part of an operation sentence. So a fact family shows the relationship between a set of numbers using 2 operations. For us, we're going to create fact families to show the relationship between multiplication and division facts so that you can become fact pros. Pause your video here so that you can get your workspace set up with your mentor. Make sure you have the following supplies ready. The fact family paper, which can be found on the Concept 5 student page, and blank paper and pencil. When you're all set, push play and we can move on. A fact family starts off with having 3 numbers that are related through the use of an operation. Let's start with these 3 numbers. You can do this part on your blank paper. 3, 4, and 12. Pause here for a second. With your mentor, discuss how you could create a multiplication sentence using 3 numbers. Specifically, the numbers up here. Using multiplication, we can make 2 sentences. 3 times 4 equals 12, and 4 times 3 equals 12. Remember, commutative property tells us it is okay to change where our factors are in the problem because the product will stay the same. We can see that 3, 4, and 12 are related because they are all part of these 2 multiplication sentences. Now we can make this family a bigger one by bringing in division. Remember, division is the inverse or opposite of multiplication. This means there is a relationship between these 2 operations, so there must be a way to use these 3 numbers with division. Pause here. With your mentor, discuss how 3, 4, and 12 can be related using division. We have 3 spots to fill in a division sentence: the dividend, the divisor, and the quotient. Let's start with the dividend. 12 is going to be our dividend because it's the biggest number and represents the total number of objects. 3 is going to be our first divisor, which means that we are going to divide 12 by 3. And we're going to make 4 our quotient. So if I were to have 12 objects and divided them into groups of 3, that means I would have 4 total groups. We can make another division sentence. Again, starting with 12 as our dividend, we can divide 12 by 4, which would give us a quotient of 3, which would mean I have 12 objects, I divide it into groups of 4, which means I have 3 groups. Almost all fact families will have a total of 4 related equations using inverse operations. In this case, this family has 4. 3 times 4 equals 12, 4 times 3 equals 12, 12 divided by 4 equals 3, and 12 divided by 3 equals 4. We found out how to use the total using multiplication, and we found out how to break apart the total into smaller groups or shares using division. Pause the video and work with your mentor. Below is a list of related numbers. Using the recording sheet that can be found on Concept 5's student page, create fact families with the given numbers using multiplication and division. We will check your answers on the next slide. Welcome back. How'd you do? Check over your answers. Take as much time as you need to review. I'd just like to point out that in the fact family for the 2, and the 4, there were only 2 members of that family. This happened because the factors 2 and 2 are the same, which means the divisor and the quotient will end up being the same, and there's no reason to repeat the same thing twice. After you've done reviewing, pause for a second for discussion with your mentor. How would being able to put fact families together help you learn your facts? So what do you think? How would being able to put fact families together help you learn your facts? If you know one multiplication sentence, then you know the other multiplication sentence. So if I knew 6 times 7 equals 42, that means I also know that 7 times 6 equals 42. I just switched the position of the factors. If I know one division sentence, then I know the other. If I know that 42 divided by 6 equals 7, well, then I have to know that 42 divided by 7 equals 6. I changed the divisor and the quotient around. You know all the parts. All you have to do is plug them in. So let's recap. Today, you learned the parts of a division fact, and you learned the division fact rules, the 0, the 1s, and the self rule. You also learned how to relate division to multiplication and how to use this knowledge to create a fact family to help you learn your facts. So what's next? It's time for you to practice and apply what you've learned. The first thing you're going to do is practice with your mentor using the guided practice page off of the Concept 5 student page. Complete your practice and then review the answers by clicking the guided practice answer key link on the Concept 5 student page to review your answers. Complete the It's All You real world project on your own and then review your work with the rubric with your mentor. That can be downloaded from the Project Tools page. Thanks for working so hard. Keep it up. I'll see you in Concept 6.